everyone, and today we're going to be looking at something that I would not normally dream of looking at because it's not exactly high-end or the best of quality in the world, but it is interesting nonetheless, and an interesting bit of history. It is a Boots branded SRR17 radio cassette player, and there it is in some rather nice 1980s pastel shades. This would have been white at some point, obviously. So what I'll probably do at some point is just leave the whole unit outside to get a bit of ultraviolet light onto it. It has some nice sort of pastel shades for the speaker covers. So we've got this, probably would have been pink originally. This is obviously a nice sort of green colour. Obviously we have somewhere where you can put a cassette. Has all the basic functionality of a radio cassette player. And a nice little feature is the door for the cassette player actually has the tuner in there as well, which you can see moving as I adjust the station. Something else I also like is the font that's used. It's all very, very 1980s. Not sure of the exact year, but I like it from an aesthetic perspective, although we know before even turning it on that the quality is not going to be all that. But that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's turn it on and let's see if it works, and also if we need to do any repairs to it. So I've just plugged it in, uses a standard figure of 8 connection. It's currently in radio stereo mode. Let's stick it onto FM. Let's pop the aerial up. And that's the volume currently on full. Whoa! So what was that on? Oh, that was on tape, radio off. So stereo is there. So let's see if we can tune it into something. Well, it works, so that certainly works. That's a good sign. Let's stick it onto tape. I have a suitable cassette here, which I don't mind if it gets destroyed. So let's pop it in. So there's no... So you can hear the motor, but there's no motion, as can be seen there. So it looks like we need to do something inside of it. Now let's put it back onto... Yep, you can see the little FM stereo light flickering, so that means that FM stereo works.
Slightly 65. Now let's look at the first of all. In the autumn of technology. A legend has it that the power is switched off after they play just 3 songs.
There we go, so it wants to work. The motor spins, which is a good sign. I think what we're going to do now is unplug it. Oh, there we go. And let's get the back off. There we go. So we'll flip it over. And then we can see what we're dealing with. So we have no screws in here. This, if you wanted to power it off batteries, would take 4 times, I think, C-size cells. So MN 1400 or LR14s, which I think are C cells, to be honest with you. Yeah, here we are. Yeah, C size, C-sized cells. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screw holes with what looks like cross-headed screws inside of there. So may as well start off by popping those out. Let's see if we've got a screwdriver that's thin enough but also long enough to get down into there, which we do, so that's good. So this really does need either retro brighting or even just leaving out in the sun for a bit. I'm recording this video in April of 2021. No, hang on a minute, it's not April yet, it's very late March. It's actually March the 28th, I think. So the clocks went forward today, which means that my little Iowa here is showing the incorrect time. It's actually an hour ahead. So we're going to sort that out in a minute. That's one thing about clocks going forward. It really sort of puts you out of kilter, even more so than when they go back, because you obviously lose an hour, but when they go back you gain an hour, and it's sort of a nicer feeling because you think, oh, it's earlier than I thought it was, whereas now it's, oh, it's later than I thought it was. One little trick that I do is set all of the clocks in the house, video recorders, etc., to be an hour ahead before actually going to bed, so that when you wake up they're an hour ahead anyway and you're in a much better state. There's also something rattling around inside there as well, so it'd be interesting to see what is rattling around. Those two screws, one from there, one from there, they're actually the same size, so that's good. There's nothing to worry about with differing size screws. I'm going to need to pop off the controllers there. They're quite standard. Yeah, it's definitely loose. So let's find a suitable flat blade. That should do it. So we can gently prise, like so. Now, what I tend to do with these is I stay closer to the actual point where they mount. So instead of, say, going from sort of like this end where you put extra strain on it, if you go from the point where they mount on, you're going against its strongest point, so you're less likely to snap anything off for sort of, you know, little fitments now which are irreplaceable, unless you have another one of these that you don't mind destroying. So once I've released that, it means that this whole front actually comes off. So this whole frontal unit here actually comes off by the looks of it. So if I give that a shake, that should dislodge the other screws, which it does. And there is something rattling around inside of it. It'd be interesting to see what it is. So I'm now going to see if I can prise this up and out. So let's eject and see if there's any additional screws in there. No, there's nothing else in there that would be holding it together. There you go. And I think I found what was rattling around. There is the little AM medium wave aerial there that seems to have parted company. So I don't know if you can see this, but you've got here and here, and then there's a hole on the board here. So what has happened at some point is this has probably either been dropped or received a bit of a jolt, because this has parted company. So that should sit in here like so, and then this one should sit in there, like so. But it looks like at some point that isn't the case. So what I'm going to do is pop this off gently, which is the actual aerial itself. This is the ferrite core. So I'm going to see if I can. Yes, I can. So what I should be able to do is pop this in there, offer this up into about there, bring this to go underneath here if I can, and then through here. There you go, so through there. Grab your little aerial wire, and then bring that through, and then just gently work it through. So it'll take a bit of effort to get it through. I think I've got to a point where the glue is, so that's probably going to be, there you go, and there, and shift that there, and there you go. So that's now back in place, so that's not going to be moving anytime soon, which is good. Now, next question is, how do we get to the cassette deck? This to me looks fairly obvious. I am guessing that I will need to remove one, and I can also begin to see what the problem is. There's your issue, which is why it's not rotating. Literally just a snapped belt. And we got 2, 3, and 4, which is underneath the FM light here. So this little FM light should be able to tease it out. So if I move that, if I find my flat blade that I had just now, I should be able to just gently ease this up and out of the way, like so. There we go. So that can come and just sit over there for a little bit, but that does expose that single screw. So the single screw can come out, and I've also seen somewhere else where there is potentially a small issue. It's not big at the moment, but there is a point where that has broken, so you don't get a real representation of where the unit is tuned into. Quite simply because this here has snapped off. So that should be on there, like so. Thankfully that's a fairly clean break, so I don't think I've got any glue at the moment which will sort that, but it's not going to be difficult to get hold of the right stuff to do that. I will keep that out for the minute and repair that again, because it's not too difficult to get inside this. What I do need to do though is carefully remove this, which is the little track that the tuner indicator runs along. That's also the microphone there as well. And what I should be able to do now is gently bring this out. Ooh, I need to be careful with that because that's the head wiring. which is tucked underneath a little plastic bit there, so that needs to come underneath that, and there we go. And that now exposes the underside. So this little belt here actually looks okay. Doesn't look like there's too many problems with that. The issue is with the belts that would have run from this flywheel down to here. And this is our little motor here. Now I found the other day a load of suitably sized belts, so let's drag those out. Here we go. So I've got loads of these tiny little cassette style belts. I don't think I've got any small enough for the personal stereo, but I do have quite a large quantity of smaller belts here, which, oh sorry, I'm not in shot with that, which should, yeah, so lots of this size and also these sort of sizes as well. That should be enough. In this one might go around here and there. That's actually too big. Yeah, so that's way too long. As it's, you can see, it's way too slack. Now, for completeness, I will pop this belt off. So just hold that in place, and oh, what's that caught on? Oh, that is actually caught on something. Oh, it's caught on this, which is, I think that's the pause mechanism. So let's see if I can work it around so that I can get it off. So if I go down this way, yeah, I'm still in the same situation. It's still going to be snagging on there. Actually, do you know something? I'm probably going to put this one back in rather than struggling to get it off, because it was fine. It was absolutely fine, albeit a little bit slack. So let's have a look and let's see if there's a way we can take it off. So we have this here, which has got a little pin there, and this here, which is held in from the other side. Right, give me a couple of moments, I'll get this sorted out and then we'll be back shortly. So I actually remembered I've got my, I do have a selection of what they're called, circlips. So the actual spindle, which is here, you can see it sort of move in and out like so, has at the top a notch on it which will perfectly accommodate the spindle, so it will perfectly accommodate one of the circlips. So that means I can actually do a full job on this and replace all of the belts rather than just replacing one. Now here we have where the pause actuator came off. So this sits on here, and there is a little spring and a little white cap that sits on top of it. Now, it's quite often, or quite common, that these never seem to go back on properly, so you're left with a unit that doesn't have pores. So I'm going to try and avoid that today by gently placing that in there like so, and then just pressing that back into place. Oh, that was annoying. That's pointed off somewhere. I heard where it went, so I heard it sort of drop onto my desk somewhere, so let's see if I can locate it. And whilst I'm doing that, I'll be back shortly. So that's that small issue resolved. Now the next one is putting the circlip onto this little spindle. So I've got a selection of circlips and I have the spindle here. So what I'm going to do is gently mount a circlip onto said spindle, and then I'm going to see if I can actually clamp it into place. So let's grab some pliers and be prepared for this to fly into orbit, because that's what it likes to do whenever I do anything like this. So the first thing is just gently pop that onto there. Whoops, that's not even going onto there. So let's pop that onto there like so, so it's roughly there. That's just dropped into there. I'll have to tip that up in a minute to get it out. Thankfully I have a few more, so let's do that again. It's very, very fiddly. And, oh, that's another one disappeared. And another one reappeared, thankfully. So that's going to go onto here. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is just to clamp it down into position. So like that, and then clamp it down. Sort of like so. So like that. So what I should be able to do is pop it back into here. That's now not going to go anywhere. And then I'll be able to get the flywheel back on and we'll be able to move on from there. So bear with me a second, I'll get that sorted out and we'll be back shortly. There we go. So I had a bit of a dig through the belts and I found one that appears to be suitable. It certainly looks better than the other one, which was broken completely. So what I should be able to do now is gently bring this up and around. So what I'm going to have to do is just tuck the head wire back underneath there, like so, and gently, oh, hang on a minute. So yeah, that's better. So gently drop that over. Go like so. Actually, I think I'm doing that wrong. I need to come up and out and get this out of the way and come in like so, buttons first. Then you can get in there like so. Now, next thing is to put the screws back into the deck. So we've got this screw there. Oh, I've just actually thought so put that down to 0. This needs to come back in first, so this will go, so that will be beginning of the travel. That will come gently over, and I'll just need to tuck out the way slightly, so this will come over and settle onto there and there. So there we go. That's both the heads out of the way. Incidentally, the erase head looks like it doesn't have any wiring on it. It's literally just a magnet. So you're going to have a pretty lackluster erase. This is certainly not a unit for recording anything. You do tend to find that on the more cost-effective units, you won't have any separate circuit for the erase head. It'll just be basically a magnet that will get pushed onto the cassette during a record mode to allow you to wipe it. Nothing particularly special, to be honest with you, but it does the job. It's quite effective at doing what it's supposed to do. As you can see, it'll go down like so, and then that's just put into place. Crude yet effective. So we'll get the deck screwed back in. What is quite interesting is that flywheel wasn't plastic, it was sort of a combination of plastic and metal, so that's something, at least. It's not completely budget. There we go, and there. And then this little FM light can tuck under there and click back into there. Now, is it stereo? The radio is stereo, and if we look at the heads, also stereo, so it is actually a stereo cassette. Just tip everything else that's in there out. There we go. I've just noticed actually this here is, I think that's supposed to sit there, because that determines whether or not you can record. So what should happen is that should be like that. So if the tape hasn't got a hole punched out, that won't allow you to press down the record button. However, it looks like at some point in the past it has unfortunately come adrift, because that is broken, and that might also be one of the items that was rattling around inside of the unit. So we'll just have to put that to one side. I think I saw the other bit of it fall off. We might be able to repair it once I have some suitable glue. So there it is, there's the other bit. So we will also need to repair this. Now that will be a challenge because it's incredibly small, and also I don't think that's the right bit of plastic. Might be able to do something with it, but I'm not going to worry too much just yet. At the moment, my main challenge or aim is actually getting it just to work. So these little cogs in here. So if we do fast forward, that's obviously going to spin the motor. What I will do is dab a very small amount of grease in there. There we go. What I will also do is I've got some switch cleaning lubricant here, and there's a bit of a general clean up. So I'm just going to pop this back on. So make sure that the wires just tuck around. And then that should gently drop in like so. So just clear away some of the bits, and what I'm going to do now actually is, because it is pretty much together, I'm going to power it on, see what happens.
A territorial dispute in the East China Sea.
So we're back together, and
in the West, there's other ways.
Radio's working.
From countries that the UK has colonised.
Now let's see if the tape works. I've got a cassette in there. Let's hit play. Oh, there we go. Doesn't actually sound too bad. It's okay, it's by no means high fidelity, but for audiobooks it's absolutely fine. Yeah, really not bad at all.
The latter part of May, a middle-aged man.
So that is the Boots branded SRR17 stereo radio cassette recorder. It is actually a proper stereo cassette as well, which is quite nice. And you know something, if you are after a cheap low-end cassette player which would play in stereo and also record in stereo, well, it would record off the radio in stereo, but will play back in stereo, you could do a lot worse than going for one of these sort of cheaper decks from the 80s and 90s. I mean, personally, I wouldn't buy a new budget cassette player because, well, I don't think they're really that great. But this
Once before that, near a month ago.
is producing very acceptable results. So, rather pleased with that. Anyway, there's a few little bits that I've got left to do to it. So I've got to stick this onto the tuner cog, so I can actually get the tuner gauge working, or sorry, the tuner dial working properly, so it doesn't sort of stop halfway through when dragging the indicator across, and probably also leaving it outside in some bright sunlight just to see if I can whiten up this case a little bit. But you know, I'm quite happy with it as it is. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video and just having a look at something a little bit different today. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Take care.